Hi there, everybody. I'm starting the process of rebuilding a set of IDDP Webers off of the Porsche. So I'm looking forward to reassembling these carbs. There's two triples, and I've done several motorcycle carb rebuilds on multi-carb setups, and they are challenging, and these are quite interesting and quite intricate. So I'll be working away and hopefully describing the processes as we go along. So come and join me as I start to whip through it, and hopefully don't run into any issues. But if I do, I'll explain them as I go along. So there are several very good resources on the net for doing rebuilds, and some good advice on Pelican has got some really good information. I just found a carb rebuild that's reasonably the same. This is the one from the 914 triples. They're not quite identical, but for the most part they're just a good process. I also have the Redline. I'm using the Redline rebuild kit. There's a bit of a diagram in there, and I haven't popped it open yet, but I'll certainly have a look at that as well and see how that looks. We're going to be just sort of following the procedure through here and sticking to it as best we can, and hopefully we don't run into too many problems. I know I'm missing some of the hardware, which I'll have to go source here over the next few days. Okay, so far so good. When we look at the parts that have come out, it looks like there's two new fuel valves here. So those have been replaced, and then all new sealing surfaces, gaskets. So two there, one on the inside that's up against the other surface here, and then one on the outside. So several replacements there. We were certainly having some leaking issues in this location. I'm going to move on to the main body, and it's a fairly more complicated, fairly bit more complicated. So it's already been cleaned, but we'll push on to the next phase here. Okay, so I've done a little bit of reading, looking at the instructions that were sent. There really isn't an order to this. I'm going to start with the fuel pump and begin this process, or the accelerator pump. And the first thing I notice is that the sealing surface has a couple of burrs on it. So I'm just going to very carefully remove that and then begin the process of putting the studs back in and assembling it in the pattern that it's supposed to be. So let's begin that. Okay, so here's the assembly as it's put all together now. I'd taken the studs out, so those are different lengths. They had to be put in the proper position. This sealing surface was really not very square, so I squared that up, or flattened it, lapped it up a bit so it was much flatter. Probably a good reason why there was quite a bit of gasoline leaking. The big focus here is just to get the car running. I'm not really in a position yet where I want to restore all these parts. You can see there's still quite a bit of rust attached to them. But when I look at the movement is very good. When I engage the throttle, this system works quite nicely, and it's very smooth. So that's it for now. On to the next stage. Okay, welcome back. We are working on the carbs off of the Porsche 911, and I'm just in the process of reassembling. And now that I've got all my parts from the carb.com location, so we have some parts that we need to manufacture. So I have a float bowl drain, which turns out to be 7 by I think 1.0 thread. And I didn't order any of these, and it looks like I'm short too, so I have to make some. So I'm going to show you how I do that on the lathe. I'm not very skilled on the lathe, but I can certainly spin myself something down that'll work here, and we'll just see how that goes. So I'm going to use a couple of bolts that are 7 mil in diameter and thread those, which shouldn't be too much of a problem. They're going to end up being quite short, and the thread head side's a bit big on this, but it's better than nothing, and I'm really excited to get my car started today. So I'm hoping that all goes well. So you can watch along. Okay. I have knocked the threads off of this one. We'll see how that goes. This one's a bit harder steel. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I might have to find a different bolt. I was a little concerned about that. But this one's pretty mild, pretty soft, and we should be able to mount a nice washer on there. We'll just see how it goes. Do the next step here. Okay, so here's the finished product. Nothing to be too excited about. A little bit mangled, but the threads are in position. Not a drain bolt, but it's just a temporary bolt so I can get the car started, and hopefully everything looks good. I'll just make sure they're square and don't leak. Okay, so I'm nearing the end of getting the carbs completed and reassembled. So ran into a few problems. Turns out that the drain on this side, where I put the new bolt I made, was actually had a broken off stud piece in there, which was difficult to get out. I thought I could easy out it, but there wasn't a lot of threads left. So I drilled it out and pushed the die or the tap back through it and just chase the threads out, and that seemed to do decently well. I'm not really happy about that, but you know, what do you do? You've got some 50-year-old equipment, and it comes with issues. So that's why I'm doing this project. If this doesn't work, then I think I'll have to drill it out and put a helicoil in there. And again, not super happy about that, but that's just the way it goes. Everything else is running okay. The plan is to just put the Venturi tops on. I'm not even going to put the original covers on. I don't have any air cleaners or anything for this. So the goal here is just to get it running and see where it's going. So hopefully that happens today. We seem to be moving along okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we got her idling. Not very well, but it's certainly showing the problems it has. But so far, so good. A little bit of backfiring going on, but get that sorted out. Take her for a drive. Well, I would say there's a problem. Looks like we have a smoke, so I would say we probably have a oil leak. Yeah, look at that. You can see how much fresh oil is coming out of there, so we must have something major going on. It's moving, but we definitely have an issue. So moving forward.